The sea is calm, the sky a perfect blue until suddenly, without warning, everything vanishes. No distress calls, no debris, just an eerie silence where moments ago a ship or plane was cutting through the air or water. This is the chilling reality of the Bermuda Triangle, a place where the rules of the ordinary seem to bend and the impossible becomes terrifyingly real. Take the infamous case of Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers that took off on a routine training mission in December of 1945. The weather was clear, the pilots experienced, yet somehow all 5 planes and the rescue aircraft sent to find them disappeared without a trace. Not a single piece of wreckage was ever found. Or consider the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy cargo ship carrying over 300 men, swallowed whole by the ocean in 1918. No storms, no warnings, just a ship and its crew gone as if they never existed. What lurks in these waters? Is it something natural, uncharted whirlpools, rogue waves, or magnetic anomalies that scramble navigation systems? Or could it be something far stranger, something science can't yet explain? The Bermuda Triangle has claimed over 1,000 lives in the last century alone, leaving behind only questions and a trail of vanishing vessels that defy logic. This isn't just about ships and planes going missing, it's about the unsettling feeling that there's a force at work here, something we can't see or understand. And that's what makes this mystery so gripping. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of the Bermuda Triangle, uncovering the lost ships, the unexplained disappearances, and the theories that have baffled experts for decades. We'll sift through the facts, separate myth from reality, and explore the most compelling explanations from methane gas eruptions to underwater sinkholes, even whispers of extraterrestrial intervention. But more than that, we'll walk in the footsteps of those who vanished, piecing together their final moments and asking the haunting question, could this happen again? So stay with me, because what you're about to discover might just change how you see the ocean and the unknown forever. Stretching across roughly 500,000 square miles of ocean, the Bermuda Triangle forms an invisible boundary between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, a deceptively ordinary patch of sea that hides extraordinary secrets. Beneath its shimmering surface lie some of the deepest trenches in the Atlantic, plunging to depths of over 27,000 feet, where sunlight never reaches and pressure crushes everything in its path. These underwater chasms, like the Puerto Rico Trench, could swallow Mount Everest whole and still have room to spare. But it's not just the depth that's unsettling. This region sits atop vast reservoirs of methane hydrates, pockets of gas trapped in ice like formations beneath the seafloor. When these pockets collapse, they can erupt without warning, sending massive bubbles racing to the surface. Some scientists believe these eruptions could reduce water density so drastically that ships lose buoyancy and sink in seconds, as if yanked downward by an unseen hand. Then there's the weather. The Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current, cuts straight through the triangle, carrying warm water north at speeds of up to 5 miles per hour. When this current clashes with sudden storms which can materialize out of nowhere, it creates chaotic waves capable of capsizing even the sturdiest vessels. Add to that the region's reputation for magnetic anomalies, where compasses spin wildly and instruments fail, and you have a perfect storm of natural hazards. Pilots and sailors have long reported strange phenomena here: electronic fog that engulfs cockpits, streaks of light darting beneath the waves, even time distortions where radios crackle with voices from the past. Yet for all its dangers, the Bermuda Triangle isn't some forbidden zone. It's one of the most heavily traveled routes in the world, with thousands of ships and planes passing through safely every year. So why do only a handful vanish without explanation? The answer might lie in the intersection of these environmental extremes, a rare convergence of deep trenches, volatile gases, and erratic weather that, when aligned, create a trap with no witnesses and no survivors. This isn't just a story of coordinates on a map. It's a reminder that even in our age of satellites and sonar, the ocean still holds mysteries that defy logic. And perhaps that's the most unsettling truth of all. Long before the Bermuda Triangle had a name, indigenous peoples whispered of its dangers, stories passed down through generations like warnings carved into the night. The Taino people, who inhabited the Caribbean for centuries before Columbus, spoke of a watery underworld where spirits lurked, a place where the ocean itself could turn against travelers. Their legends tell of sudden fogs that swallowed canoes whole and lights flickering beneath the waves like drowned stars. These tales weren't just campfire stories, they were survival guides, maps of the unseen dangers that lurked beyond the reefs. By the time European ships began crossing the Atlantic in the 1700s, superstition had woven itself into the fabric of seafaring life. Sailors called it the Devil's Triangle, a stretch of ocean where compass needles spun like drunken dancers and storms arose from clear skies. Logbooks from the era are filled with eerie accounts. Ships found adrift with meals still warm on the table. Crews vanished without a footprint left behind. One particularly chilling entry from a British merchant vessel in 1780 describes a ghostly schooner appearing at midnight, its sails billowing with no wind before dissolving into mist. The captain wrote that his crew refused to speak of it afterward, as if naming the horror might summon it back. What's fascinating is how these early stories mirror so many modern disappearances. The same phenomena described by Taino elders, uncharted whirlpools, sudden fogs that silence radio's echo in 20th century incident reports. It's as if the triangle's tricks haven't changed, only the witnesses have. Even Christopher Columbus's journals mention bizarre occurrences here. His compass malfunctioning near the Bahamas, strange lights dancing on the horizon that his crew took as omens. When indigenous wisdom and colonial records agree on something this unsettling, it's worth listening. These legends did more than frighten sailors, they shaped how we interpret mysteries today. When Flight 19 vanished in 1945, newspapers didn't just report facts, they resurrected 300-year-old tales of cursed waters. Modern theorists studying methane bubbles or electronic fog are, in a way, translating those old fears into science, proving that folklore often guards kernels of truth. The ocean has always been humanity's greatest riddle, and the Bermuda Triangle, it's where her oldest secrets surface long enough to pull us under. The USS Cyclops was a beast of a ship, 540 feet of steel, built to haul mountains of coal for the U.S. Navy during World War I, but in March of 1918, this towering vessel sailed straight into the Bermuda Triangle's grip and vanished without so much as a splinter left behind. 306 souls, every single sailor, officer, and civilian on board, were erased from existence in what remains the U.S. Navy's greatest unsolved maritime mystery. No distress signal, no oil slick, just an eerie silence where a 10,000-ton ship should have been. What makes the Cyclops' disappearance so unnerving is how routine everything seemed until the very end. The ship had just delivered a load of coal to Brazil and was returning to Baltimore with a cargo of manganese ore, a heavy but stable mineral. Captain George Worley, a seasoned but notoriously gruff officer, reported nothing unusual in his final dispatches. Then, after passing Barbados on March 4th, the Cyclops simply stopped existing. The Navy launched its largest search operation to date, scouring nearly 300,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing, not a life jacket, not a flare, not even a single piece of flotsam. It was as if the sea had opened its jaws and swallowed the ship whole. Theories there's no shortage. Some point to German U-boats as the war was still raging, but naval records show no U-boat activity in the area at the time. and no captain would have risked letting such a massive prize slip away without claiming credit. Others blame structural failure. The Cyclops had a history of overloaded cargo, and manganese ore shifts dangerously if not properly secured. A sudden list could have sent the ship to the bottom in minutes. But here's the catch: even sinking ships leave debris, oil spills, floating wreckage. The Cyclops left none of it. Then there's the Bermuda Triangles wildcard, methane hydrates. Imagine a bubble of gas the size of a city block erupting from the seafloor. When these pockets burst, they can turn water into froth, robbing ships of buoyancy. One minute you're sailing, the next you're plummeting straight down. It's a compelling theory, except no other ship in the area reported disturbances that day. And why would the Cyclops have been the only victim? But the most haunting detail isn't in the ship's fate, it's in the crew's final hours. Several sailors reportedly begged to be transferred off the Cyclops before that final voyage, citing bad omens. One officer's letter home spoke of Captain Worley's erratic behavior, including midnight pacing on deck and conversations with unseen figures. Were these just the superstitions of stressed men, or was there something darker at work? The Navy's official report called the disappearance one of the most baffling mysteries in the annals of the sea, a rare admission that even the mightiest military power can be humbled by the unknown. A century later, the Cyclops still guards its secrets. Modern sonar has scanned the seafloor where it vanished, revealing nothing. Divers have searched the trenches only to be met with crushing darkness. Whatever took the Cyclops, whether rogue wave, hidden explosion, or something far stranger, left no witnesses, no evidence, and no mercy. And that's what lingers, the realization that in these waters, even the strongest steel and brightest minds are no match for the abyss. December 5, 1945, began like any other training day at Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, collectively known as Flight 19, took off under clear blue skies, their crews eager to practice bombing runs over the shallow waters of the Bahamas. These weren't rookies. The squadron leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, had over 2,000 flight hours, and his students were weeks from completing advanced training. Yet within hours, all 14 men aboard those planes would become the most famous casualties of the Bermuda Triangle, their disappearance sparking a panic that still lingers today. The first sign of trouble came just 90 minutes into the flight. Taylor's voice crackled over the radio, calm at first, then increasingly frantic. "Both my compasses are out. We must have gotten lost after that last turn." Controllers at Fort Lauderdale tried guiding him by radio, but Taylor insisted they were over the Florida Keys, impossible given their flight path. Then came his chilling report: "The ocean looks strange, it's all white water." Other pilots chimed in as static swallowed their voices, one muttering, "We can't be sure of any direction. Everything is wrong." What followed was a rescue mission as doomed as Flight 19 itself. A PBM Mariner flying boat, packed with 13 crewmen and state-of-the-art tracking equipment, blasted off to search the last known coordinates. 23 minutes after takeoff, it too vanished without a trace. Witnesses aboard a nearby tanker reported seeing a fireball in the sky, but no wreckage was ever recovered. The Navy's official report blamed Taylor for mental confusion, but that explanation crumbles under scrutiny. How could 5 planes, each with backup compasses, all fail simultaneously? Why did Taylor's description of white water match later accounts of methane eruptions bubbling to the surface? The media seized on the mystery, stitching together half-truths until the Bermuda Triangle became shorthand for paranormal danger. Conspiracy theorists whispered of alien abductions, time warps, even secret Nazi technology, anything to explain why not a single scrap of the Avengers or the Mariner was found. But the truth might lie in the Triangle's cruelest natural phenomena. That afternoon, sailors in the Bahamas reported freakish weather, rogue waves, sudden fog banks, and a phenomenon called electronic fog that can scramble instruments and disorient pilots. Modern researchers speculate that Flight 19 flew straight into a magnetic anomaly, their compasses spinning uselessly as they burned fuel over endless, identical waves. Perhaps the most haunting legacy of Flight 19 isn't the unanswered questions, but the way it rewrote our fear of the unknown. Before 1945, ships vanished quietly. Afterward, every disappearance became a spectacle, a puzzle demanding supernatural answers. The Navy decommissioned Fort Lauderdale's runways as if the land itself were cursed. Decades later, divers still occasionally report spotting shadowy plane-shaped silhouettes gliding through the depths, but they always dissolve before anyone can reach them. Whether it's a trick of the light or something more unsettling, one fact remains: the ocean keeps its secrets well. And in the Bermuda Triangle, even the best trained among us can become just another cautionary tale. The SS Marine Sulphur Queen seemed ordinary at first glance, a 425-foot T2 tanker converted to carry molten sulfur, its hull repurposed with massive heating coils to keep the cargo liquid at nearly 300 degrees Fahrenheit. But on February 2, 1963, this unassuming vessel sailed into the Bermuda Triangle's grip and became one of its most debated disappearances. The last transmission from the crew was utterly routine, a weather update off the Florida Keys, no hint of trouble, then silence, no mayday calls, no wreckage. Just 39 men and a ship laden with 15,000 tons of blazing hot sulfur, gone as if plucked from the sea by invisible hands. What makes this case so unsettling isn't just the disappearance, it's the cargo. Molten sulfur is notoriously volatile. If the heating coils failed, the substance could solidify mid-voyage, destabilizing the ship's balance. Worse, sulfur fumes are explosive when mixed with air, capable of tearing through steel like paper. The Coast Guard's final report leaned heavily on this risk, suggesting a catastrophic explosion might have vaporized the entire vessel instantly. Yet veteran sailors pushed back, pointing out that even the fiercest blazes leave debris-charred life jackets, twisted metal, oil slicks. The Sulphur Queen left nothing, not a single life raft, not a single scorched plank. This eerie void of evidence sent conspiracy theorists spiraling. If no physical traces remained, could the ship have slipped into another dimension? Witnesses came forward with bizarre accounts. A tanker captain nearby swore he'd seen a ghostly yellow haze hovering over the water that night, while radio operators reported strange static bursts resembling mechanical screams. The most chilling detail: a single life preserver from the Sulphur Queen washed up months later near the Azores, but lab tests showed no saltwater damage, as if it had never touched the ocean. Scientists offered tamer explanations. The ship's conversion had left structural weaknesses. Sulfur corrosion might have cracked the hull like an eggshell. Others pointed to the Triangle's methane bubbles, which could have swallowed the vessel whole before resurfacing evidence. But none of these theories fully explain the Coast Guard's own admission. The disappearance was inconsistent with all known maritime disasters. Even today, the Sulphur Queen's fate lingers as a taunting paradox, a case where the official explanation feels as thin as the myths it tries to dismiss. Perhaps that's why this story endures, not because it defies science, but because it exposes how little we truly understand about these waters. When even the experts throw up their hands, the ocean wins again. On Christmas Eve 1967, a 55-foot luxury cabin cruiser named the Witchcraft set sail from Miami Harbor for what should have been a simple evening cruise. Its owner, Dan Burak, a wealthy hotelier, had invited his friend, Father Patrick Horgan, to enjoy the holiday lights from the water. Burak even phoned the Coast Guard at 9 that night to report a minor issue. The yacht had supposedly struck something. Not an emergency, he assured them, just a precaution. A rescue boat arrived in under 20 minutes, but when they reached the Witchcraft's last known coordinates, they found the yacht drifting calmly, its engine idling, Christmas decorations still twinkling on deck. And not a single soul on board. The scene was chilling in its ordinariness. A pot of coffee sat warm on the galley stove. Cigarettes smoldered in ashtrays as if freshly stubbed out. Life jackets hung neatly in place, untouched. It was as if Burak and Horgan had simply stepped away, except they'd left no note, no distress signal, and no logical way off the vessel. The Coast Guard scoured every inch of the Witchcraft. No signs of struggle, no blood, no forced entry. Even the yacht's dinghy remained secured to the deck. The only anomaly, a single frayed rope trailing into the water, its end slightly frayed as if cut or torn. Theories erupted like storm waves. Some pointed to rogue waves. The Witchcraft was just a mile offshore, where sudden, towering swells could sweep people overboard without capsizing the boat. Others whispered of insurance fraud, noting Burak's recent business troubles, but the yacht's pristine condition undermined that idea. Sabotaging a vessel usually leaves evidence. Then came the eerie parallel to history's most famous ghost ship. The Mary Celeste, found adrift in 1872 with meals still on the table and no crew. Both cases shared that uncanny stillness, as if time itself had paused mid-moment. Yet the Witchcraft's mystery cuts deeper. Modern investigators have floated a darker possibility: kidnapping. Burak's ties to Miami's elite made him a potential target, and the frayed rope suggests someone might have boarded forcibly. But why leave the yacht untouched? Why take two men without a struggle? Even the Coast Guard's final report admitted defeat, calling it a case that defies maritime logic. Today, the Witchcraft remains a cautionary tale, not of the ocean's fury, but of its silence. Because sometimes the most terrifying disappearances aren't marked by chaos, but by the absence of it. The sea doesn't always roar. Sometimes it swallows without a sound. Bruce Jernon was a pilot who knew the skies over the Bahamas like the back of his hand until one December afternoon in 1970, when the Bermuda Triangles showed him just how little he truly understood. Flying his small Beechcraft Bonanza from Andros Island to Miami, Jernon encountered something that would haunt him for decades: a swirling, glowing fog that didn't just obscure visibility, it warped reality itself. What began as a routine flight quickly spiraled into a nightmare. First, a strange lenticular cloud formed ahead of him, its edges pulsing with unnatural light. Then, as Jernon attempted to navigate around it, the cloud stretched into a tunnel, engulfing his plane in what he later called electronic fog. His compass spun wildly. Radio transmissions dissolved into static. Even his wristwatch raced ahead nearly 30 minutes in what felt like seconds. Jernon's account isn't just another eerie tale. It's a first-hand glimpse into one of the Triangle's most persistent and terrifying theories. He described the fog as alive, crackling with energy, as if the plane had flown into a living storm of electromagnetic chaos. When he finally burst free, his instruments flickered back to life, but nothing made sense. He'd somehow covered 75 miles in under 3 minutes, an impossible speed for his aircraft. Even air traffic control was baffled, confirming his sudden reappearance on radar far ahead of schedule. Jernon's experience mirrors older sailors' logs describing time losses in the Triangle, where crews swore their voyages lasted hours longer than recorded, or clocks stopped altogether. Scientists have struggled to explain this phenomenon. Some point to the region's unique geomagnetic field, where deep-sea methane eruptions could theoretically ionize the air, creating dense, conductive fog capable of scrambling electronics. Others speculate about underwater volcanic activity releasing charged particles that distort both time perception and instrumentation. But the most chilling parallel comes from military experiments. During Cold War radar tests, pilots reported similar time slips near powerful electromagnetic fields, as if the very fabric of reality grew thin under extreme energy. What makes Jernon's story so compelling isn't just the mystery, it's the corroboration. Decades later, other pilots came forward with nearly identical accounts. One commercial aviator described flying through a sudden vortex near Puerto Rico where his GPS placed him simultaneously in two locations. A cargo ship captain in the 1980s logged a luminous mist that erased 12 hours from his crew's memories. These aren't just isolated incidents, they're fragments of a pattern the Bermuda Triangle has woven for centuries. Whether it's nature's hidden forces or something beyond our understanding, one thing is clear. In these waters, the rules of physics seem negotiable. And for those who have brushed against the unknown, like Bruce Jernon, the real terror isn't the fog itself, it's the realization that our world holds pockets where logic dissolves entirely. Picture the ocean floor as a ticking time bomb. Hidden beneath layers of sediment lie vast reservoirs of frozen methane hydrate, a crystalline substance that traps explosive gas in icy cages. When these deposits destabilize, the results are catastrophic. Scientists studying the Bermuda Triangle have uncovered massive craters along the seafloor, some stretching over half a mile wide, where methane once erupted with the force of a small nuclear blast. These aren't just geological curiosities, they could be the smoking gun behind countless disappearances. Here's how it works. Under immense pressure and cold temperatures, methane hydrates remain stable. But a slight shift, an underwater landslide, a seismic tremor, even a passing ship's vibrations can trigger a sudden release. As the ice-like structures dissolve, they transform into a swirling storm of gas bubbles racing toward the surface. Experiments in Norway's fjords have demonstrated the terrifying physics at play. When methane saturates water, it reduces density so drastically that ships lose buoyancy almost instantly. Test vessels placed above simulated eruptions sank in seconds, as if the ocean itself had turned to quicksand. The scale of these explosions defies imagination. A single cubic meter of methane hydrate can release 164 cubic meters of gas. Now multiply that by the billions of tons stored beneath the Bermuda Triangle. Russian researchers mapping the Carolina coast discovered craters so fresh their edges were still collapsing, proof these events aren't ancient history. Sonar scans reveal fractured seabeds where entire hydrate fields vanished overnight, suggesting eruptions powerful enough to swallow ships whole. But there's another sinister side effect. When methane reaches the surface, it creates another lethal hazard: airborne gas clouds. Pilots passing through these invisible plumes report engines choking as oxygen levels plummet. Some scientists speculate Flight 19's compass failures could trace back to methane-induced ionization, scrambling electronics mid-flight. Even more chilling. These clouds are flammable. A single spark, whether from an engine or a lightning strike, could ignite a fireball capable of vaporizing planes before they hit the water. Yet for all its explanatory power, the methane hypothesis has limits. Researchers note that most hydrate eruptions leave debris fields, yet triangle disappearances often yield nothing. Could the gas somehow dissolve wreckage, or are we witnessing a deadlier phenomenon where methane combines with the triangle's other anomalies to create a perfect storm? The answer may lie in those gaping seabed craters, silent witnesses to forces we're only beginning to understand. What's certain is this: when the ocean decides to exhale, nothing on its surface stands a chance. Navigational tools don't lie until they enter the Bermuda Triangle. Here, compasses spin like tops, GPS systems glitch without warning, and seasoned sailors find themselves suddenly adrift in a world where north isn't north anymore. The reason: this swath of ocean sits alarmingly close to one of Earth's most unpredictable features, the shifting magnetic North Pole. Unlike true north, which is fixed at the top of the globe, magnetic north wobbles like a drunk compass needle, pulled by molten iron currents deep within the planet. And right now, it's drifting toward Siberia at nearly 40 miles per year directly through the Bermuda Triangle's backyard. This isn't just a quirk of geology, it's a recipe for chaos. Magnetic compasses point toward magnetic north, not true north, and in the triangle, that difference can be as much as 15 degrees. For modern ships with GPS, that's a minor inconvenience. But for pilots and sailors relying on analog instruments, especially before the 1960s, it's a lethal miscalculation. Lieutenant Charles Taylor's final transmissions from Flight 19 scream this danger. "Both my compasses are out," he radioed, his voice tight with confusion. "We must be somewhere northeast of base, but we can't see land." Later analysis revealed Taylor wasn't near Florida at all. He'd been steering his squadron deeper into the Atlantic, trusting instruments that the triangle had tricked. The phenomenon isn't new. Christopher Columbus's logs from 1492 describe his crew's panic when their compass needles swung wildly near the Bahamas, a deviation he initially hid to avoid mutiny. Whaling ships in the 1800s reported similar anomalies, dubbing the region the Devil's Whim for its habit of turning reliable tools into traitors. Even today, commercial pilots crossing the triangle file special flight plans accounting for what aviators call the dip zone, where magnetic fields dip so sharply that unadjusted compasses tilt downward, falsely indicating a nosedive. But the real mystery isn't why compasses fail here, it's why the effect is so inconsistent. Some vessels pass through unharmed, others vanish without a mayday. Scientists point to localized magnetic storms where solar winds collide with Earth's magnetosphere, creating temporary pockets of turbulence. Underwater, things get stranger. The Puerto Rico Trench, the Atlantic's deepest chasm, harbors vast deposits of magnetite, an iron-rich mineral that can warp magnetic fields like a funhouse mirror. When combined with methane eruptions ionizing the air above, these forces might create fleeting, dead zones where every instrument fails at once. For all our technology, we're still at the mercy of forces older than civilization. The Bermuda Triangle doesn't just distort compasses, it exposes the fragile line between navigation and guesswork, reminding us that even in the age of satellites, the ocean writes its own rules. And sometimes those rules defy every tool we've built to understand them. The Gulf Stream isn't just a current, it's a liquid highway racing through the Bermuda Triangle at speeds that can outpace an Olympic swimmer. This massive river within the ocean moves at nearly 5 miles per hour, carrying warmth from the tropics up the east coast like a conveyor belt. But for ships in distress, that same force becomes a silent eraser, sweeping wreckage far beyond search grids before rescue teams can even launch. Take the USS El Faro, a modern cargo ship that vanished during Hurricane Joaquin in 2015. Despite advanced tracking technology, the vessel's debris field stretched over 70 miles within days, scattered by the Gulf Stream's relentless pull. Search crews found life jackets in North Carolina, while the ship's data recorder washed up in the Bahamas, a testament to how quickly the current can rewrite the evidence of a disaster. This phenomenon isn't unique to recent tragedies. In 1955, the luxury yacht Connemara Roman IV was discovered adrift near Bermuda, its sails shredded but hull intact. No crew, no signs of struggle, just an empty ghost ship riding the Gulf Stream like a leaf on a river. Investigators later traced its path backward, realizing the current had carried it over 200 miles from its last known position. Had the yacht sunk just a few nautical miles outside the stream's grip, debris might have lingered for weeks. Instead, the Gulf Stream turned the investigation into a guessing game. What makes this current so deceptive is its hidden power. On the surface, the water appears calm, even inviting a deep blue ribbon winding through the triangle. But beneath lies turbulence strong enough to dismember sunken vessels, dispersing fragments across thousands of square miles. When the USS Scorpion, a nuclear submarine, disappeared in 1968, the Navy spent months combing the Atlantic. They finally found the wreck, but only after accounting for the Gulf Stream's role in dragging the debris field miles from where sonar suggested it should be. Scientists now use the Gulf Stream's behavior to explain historical vanishings. The Carroll A. Deering, a schooner found abandoned in 1921 with meals still on the table, likely fell victim to the current's grip. Its crew might have abandoned ship during a storm, only for the Gulf Stream to speed the vessel away before rescuers could connect the dots. Even Flight 19's missing Avengers could have been carried far from their last coordinates, their aluminum frames broken into confetti by the current and sunk in depths where no sonar can reach. The cruel irony, the same current that makes the triangle so treacherous also sustains its allure. Mariners rely on the Gulf Stream for quicker voyages, hugging its warm waters to shave days off transatlantic trips. But when disaster strikes, Chinese letter becomes a curse, ensuring that whatever the triangle takes, it rarely gives back. The ocean's memory is short, and in these waters, the Gulf Stream is its most efficient eraser. One of the most dangerous forces in the Bermuda Triangle isn't supernatural, it's human nature. The same confidence that fuels explorers and mariners can become their undoing in these waters where complacency meets chaos. The Triangle's reputation as a maritime graveyard isn't just about methane bubbles or rogue waves. It's about the collision of human error with an environment that punishes even the smallest mistakes. Consider the SS Sylvia L. Asa, a 600-foot ore carrier that vanished in 1976 with 37 crew members. The official report blamed heavy weather, but investigators later uncovered a far more disturbing truth. The ship's hull was riddled with corrosion, its maintenance logs falsified. The Asa wasn't swallowed by a mystery, it was betrayed by shortcuts, a ghost ship waiting to happen. This pattern repeats across the Triangle's history. The region's busy shipping lanes create a false sense of security, with captains assuming that heavy traffic equals safety. But those crowded routes also mean more ships pushing limits, overloaded cargo holds, delayed repairs, and crews working double shifts to meet deadlines. The El Faro disaster in 2015 laid this bare. Despite hurricane warnings, the captain pressed forward, trusting outdated weather data and an overworked engine. The ship's black box revealed chilling final moments, crew members realizing too late that their technology couldn't outrun a storm the Triangle had brewed just for them. Technology itself becomes a double-edged sword. Modern navigational systems lull sailors into over-reliance, ignoring the Triangle's knack for scrambling signals. In 2008, a cargo ship's GPS suddenly placed it 20 miles inland, on a map of Florida, while the actual vessel drifted into a collision course with a reef. The crew had ignored backup compasses, assuming satellites couldn't lie. Even worse are the silent disasters, like the SS Poet in 1980. A seasoned captain ignored radio warnings about a brewing cyclone, confident his radar would spot trouble. The Poet and its 34 souls disappeared so completely, the Coast Guard initially suspected hijacking until a single life raft washed ashore, its emergency beacon untouched. The grim lesson: in these waters, arrogance sinks faster than steel. The Bermuda Triangle doesn't just kill, it exposes. It takes the complacency we've built around modern travel, the belief that steel and satellites make us invincible, and flips it into a horror story. Because sometimes the most terrifying force isn't what the ocean does to ships, but what ships do to themselves. The MV Joyita wasn't just another vanished ship, it was a floating crime scene wrapped in Bermuda Triangle lore. When this 69-foot merchant vessel drifted into Fijian waters in November 1955, its condition told a horrific story. The engines were still running, radios tuned to distress frequencies, and medical supplies laid out as if mid-surgery. But the 25 passengers and crew gone, not a single body. What investigators found instead was far more chilling. A blood-stained bandage, a doctor's bag with bone saw marks, and logbooks suggesting the captain had changed course abruptly before the disappearance. This wasn't just an accident, someone had staged this vanishing act. The Joyita's fate exposes the Triangle's darkest secret: how easily human malice can hide behind the veil of mystery. Officially, the court ruled the ship sank from unknown causes, but the evidence whispered otherwise. The hull's pumps were switched off despite severe flooding. Life rafts remained untouched, yet the ship's dinghy was missing. Most damning, a crewman's wallet stuffed with cash was left behind, something no fleeing sailor would forget. Rumors swirled of a mutiny, a hijacking gone wrong, even whispers of gold smuggling. But the truth might be simpler: insurance fraud. The Joyita's owner had doubled its policy weeks before the voyage, a red flag so glaring even Lloyd's of London refused to pay out. This pattern of staged disasters stretches far beyond the Joyita. In 1978, the SS Hawarden Bridge, a coal carrier dubbed the Phantom Ship, was caught deliberately scuttled off Haiti after insurers uncovered forged damage reports. The crew had vanished, but Haitian authorities later arrested the captain living under a false name. Even Flight 19's legend hides a darker thread. Declassified documents reveal one pilot's life insurance was mysteriously updated days before the flight, naming a girlfriend with alleged mob ties as beneficiary. These aren't supernatural events, they're crimes dressed in ghost stories, yet the ocean complicates everything. Unlike a staged car crash or arson, the sea offers the perfect accomplice. It swallows evidence whole. When the tanker USS Cyclops was abandoned in the Arctic in 1931, its hull became a drifting decoy, appearing and vanishing for decades as different criminals claimed salvage rights. Modern satellite tracking has made such scams harder but not impossible. In 2017, the oil tanker Brillante Virtuoso burned near Yemen under suspicious circumstances. Investigators found fuel valves mysteriously opened, yet the crew insisted it was an act of pirates. Sound familiar? The Bermuda Triangle's greatest trick isn't making ships disappear, it's making us forget how many vanishings have perfectly human explanations. For every methane bubble theory, there's a ledger with forged signatures. For every magnetic anomaly, a captain's duplicitous log entry. The ocean doesn't need monsters when greed will do. Perhaps that's the real horror lurking in these waters, not ancient curses or alien abductions, but the realization that the deadliest force in the triangle has always been us. The SS Cotopaxi had been missing for 90 years, a ghost ship whispered about in sailors' taverns and conspiracy forums alike. Then, in December of 2015, underwater archaeologists made a discovery that cracked the Bermuda Triangle's myth wide open. There, sprawled across the seafloor 35 miles off the coast of St. Augustine, lay the Cotopaxi's broken hull, its boilers and propeller instantly recognizable. This wasn't some spectral vanishing act. The ship had gone down in a storm back in 1925, sinking like any other vessel caught in nature's fury. The real mystery: why it took nearly a century to find her. What the Cotopaxi's rediscovery reveals is a simple truth. The ocean is the world's greatest magician, not because it makes things disappear, but because it hides them in plain sight. The Bermuda Triangle's depths are a labyrinth of canyons and trenches, with the Puerto Rico Trench alone plunging deeper than 27,000 feet, enough to bury Everest with room to spare. At these pressures, light vanishes and sonar signals distort like echoes in a hall of mirrors. Wreckage doesn't just sink here, it's swallowed by darkness, scattered by currents, or buried under layers of sediment in months. The USS Cyclops, if it rests in the trench, its steel hull could have collapsed into a pancake under 16,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, leaving fragments no larger than a dinner plate. Technology is only now catching up to the challenge. Modern autonomous drones like the Deep Discoverer use multi-beam sonar to map the seafloor inch by inch, revealing wrecks once considered lost forever. In 2019, explorers found the SS Bloody Marsh, a tanker torpedoed in World War II, sitting upright near the Bahamas as if frozen in time. But even with these tools, the odds are staggering. The Triangle's floor is roughly the size of Alaska, much of it uncharted. A ship like the Carroll A. Deering could be mere miles from a shipping lane, yet hidden beneath a sand dune shaped by the Gulf Stream's relentless pull. Then there's the chemistry of decay. Saltwater is a ruthless archivist. Wooden vessels disintegrate within decades, eaten by shipworms and bacteria. Metal fares worse. Aluminum plane frames oxidize into dust, while steel succumbs to rusticles, icicle-like formations that dissolve hulls like sugar in tea. By the time explorers found Flight 19's Avengers in the 1990s, the planes were barely recognizable, their wings reduced to stain-like outlines on the seabed. This isn't just about depth, it's about time. The ocean doesn't erase history. It grinds it down until only ghosts remain. Yet every so often, the sea gives up a secret. In 2022, a team scanning near Grand Bahama spotted an anomaly, a series of straight lines too perfect for nature. Dives revealed the SS Conestoga, a steamship missing since 1926, its cargo of coal still piled in the hold. Like the Cotopaxi, its disappearance hadn't been supernatural, just tragically ordinary. Storms, leaks, human error. The real horror isn't that ships vanish without explanation. It's that the ocean is so vast, so indifferent, it can hide entire graveyards in its shadows. And as technology pulls back the veil, we're left with a sobering thought. Maybe the Triangle's greatest trick was convincing us it needed magic at all. Behind the official reports and press conferences, a darker thread weaves through the Bermuda Triangle's history, one stamped classified and locked in government vaults. Declassified documents from the Cold War era reveal startling connections between the Triangle and military experiments, suggesting that some disappearances might not be accidents at all. Take Project Magnet, a covert U.S. Navy operation in the 1950s studying Earth's magnetic fields. Records show they deliberately steered ships and planes into the Triangle's most unstable zones, testing how magnetic anomalies affected navigation. One memo from 1956 admits a disturbing truth. 3 test aircraft vanished during these missions, wiped from official logs as training accidents. Why the secrecy? The Cold War bred paranoia, and the U.S. government wasn't alone in its interest. Soviet submarines were sighted near the Triangle throughout the 1960s, sparking theories that both superpowers were weaponizing the region's natural phenomena. A 1973 CIA briefing even speculated about atmospheric energy weapons, referencing strange flashes reported by commercial pilots, events later dismissed as ball lightning despite no scientific evidence. The most chilling revelation came in 2012 when a retired Air Force colonel admitted under oath that Flight 19's final radio transmissions were altered before release to the public. The original tapes, he claimed, contained references to a glow beneath the water and mechanical interference with instruments details scrubbed to avoid panic. But cover-ups aren't always about national security. Sometimes they're about money. The Bermuda Triangle sits atop major shipping lanes and flight paths, generating billions in trade revenue. Admitting the area's dangers could collapse insurance markets and reroute global commerce. After the SS Marine Sulphur Queen vanished, Lloyd's of London quietly raised premiums for Triangle voyages by 300% until the U.S. State Department pressured them to reverse the hike, citing unfounded hysteria. Even today, airlines avoid discussing the Triangle's peculiarities. A 2017 FAA memo obtained through FOIA requests warned pilots reporting unusual instrument behavior near Puerto Rico to expect mandatory psychiatric evaluation. The truth may lie somewhere between conspiracy and incompetence. When the USS Scorpion submarine disappeared in 1968, the Navy spent months searching only to reveal decades later they'd known its exact location within weeks. The delay, they were recovering nuclear warheads first. In the Bermuda Triangle, where natural mysteries and human agendas collide, the only certainty is this: the ocean keeps its secrets, and sometimes so do we. The sky over the Bermuda Triangle doesn't just hide storms, it conceals flashes of something far stranger. On the night of July 23, 1978, veteran commercial pilots Clarence Chiles and John Whitted were cruising at 5,000 feet near the Florida coast when a glowing object streaked toward their DC-3. This wasn't a meteor or a plane. It was a 100-foot-long, cigar-shaped craft with no wings, no tail, and a pulsating blue-white light that lit up the cockpit like a flare. The thing shot past them at nearly twice their speed before banking sharply upward, a maneuver no known aircraft could survive. Chiles, a World War II veteran with thousands of flight hours, later swore under oath it wasn't of this earth. This wasn't an isolated incident. The Triangle's lore brims with accounts of impossible craft squadrons of World War II pilots reporting Foo Fighters that danced around their wings, fishermen describing underwater discs that trailed their boats like silent shadows. Even Christopher Columbus's logs mention a great flame of fire plunging into the sea near the Bahamas in 1492, an event modern UFO researchers cite as one of history's first documented encounters. But what sets the Chiles-Whitted sighting apart is its credibility. Both pilots passed lie detector tests, and their descriptions matched separate radar blips from Eglin Air Force Base that night. For skeptics, it remains the Bermuda Triangle's most unnerving UFO case precisely because it can't be easily dismissed. Science, of course, offers alternatives. The most common is ball lightning, a rare atmospheric phenomenon where charged plasma forms glowing orbs that hover or dart unpredictably. In 1965, a Pan Am crew over Maryland reported a crimson sphere pacing their jet for 15 minutes before vanishing, an event later attributed to ball lightning. The Triangle's volatile weather and electromagnetic anomalies could theoretically spawn such displays, with methane eruptions adding fuel to the fire. But here's the catch: ball lightning typically lasts seconds, not minutes. It doesn't make 90-degree turns at supersonic speeds like Chiles-Whitted's craft. And it certainly doesn't leave radar signatures. The deeper you dig, the murkier it gets. Declassified CIA files from 1952 describe green fireballs over the Atlantic that outmaneuvered military jets, while a 1986 Japan Airlines crew near Anchorage filmed a UFO the size of 2 aircraft carriers only for their footage to vanish from FAA archives. These accounts share eerie consistencies: silent movement, impossible acceleration, and a tendency to vanish near bodies of water. Some researchers speculate the Triangle might be a window area, a zone where extraterrestrial or interdimensional visitors slip through unseen. Others point to the U.S. military's own secretive history in the region, from underground bases in Puerto Rico to rumored tests of experimental aircraft like the Aurora spy plane. But perhaps the most chilling thread connects UFOs to the Triangle's vanishings. In 1973, a charter pilot named Chuck Wakely claimed to have been temporarily abducted while flying near Andros Island. His instruments failed as a blue light engulfed the cockpit, and he later woke up 30 miles off course with no memory of the flight. His story mirrors Bruce Jernon's electronic fog experience and a dozen other accounts of pilots losing time over these waters. Are these just stress-induced hallucinations, as psychologists suggest, or is there something or someone using the Triangle's natural chaos as camouflage? The truth might lie somewhere between the fantastical and the factual. Even NASA now acknowledges the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena, refusing to rule out extraterrestrial origins. Meanwhile, the ocean below keeps its secrets close, swallowing evidence as quickly as it spawns new questions. Whether you believe the Triangle skies host visitors from another world or just nature's most bizarre light shows, one thing's certain: in this patch of ocean, the line between science fiction and science fact is as thin as the horizon at dusk. And that uncertainty, that's where the real mystery lies. Could the Bermuda Triangle be a gateway not just to the ocean's depths but to another time, another world? This is the tantalizing theory that's lured conspiracy hunters for decades. most famously championed by author Charles Berlitz in his 1974 bestseller The Bermuda Triangle. His wildest claim that the triangle sits atop the lost city of Atlantis, its ancient technology still humming beneath the waves, warping reality itself. Berlitz pointed to Plato's descriptions of Atlantis sinking near the Pillars of Hercules, which some interpret as the Straits of Florida, and linked it to modern reports of compass failures and sudden fogs. According to his theory, the ruins of Atlantis might house a still active energy crystal powerful enough to rip holes in space-time, swallowing ships and planes whole. It's a mind-bending idea, but let's peel back the layers. Berlitz wasn't entirely inventing from scratch. He drew from earlier accounts like Edgar Case's 1930s psychic readings, which described Atlantis as a civilization powered by mysterious firestone crystals buried near Bimini. When explorers discovered the Bimini Road, a submerged rock formation resembling a paved path in 1968, believers declared it proof. Yet geologists quickly debunked the site as natural beach rock, fractured by millennia of tides. Similarly, Berlitz's electronic fog reports mirror Cold War experiments where radar operators noted strange, ionized clouds, distorting radio waves later traced to atmospheric testing, not ancient tech. Science, of course, offers simpler explanations for the triangle's oddities. The region's magnetic anomalies are well documented, caused by Earth shifting molten core, not alien artifacts. Methane hydrates explain sudden sinkings without invoking portals. Even the infamous time slips reported by pilots like Bruce Jernon align with documented effects of extreme electromagnetic fields on human perception, studied by militaries since the 1950s. But here's the twist: quantum physics does allow for theoretical wormholes, shortcuts through spacetime. The catch: creating one would require energy levels akin to a collapsing star, not a few rogue bubbles in the Atlantic. So why does the portal myth persist? Partly because it fills the gaps where science hesitates. When the USS Cyclops vanished without a single life jacket, or Flight 19's pilots radioed about skies that don't look right, these stories beg for meaning beyond cold statistics. The human mind recoils from randomness, craving narratives where chaos is controlled by some higher force, even if it's a malfunctioning Atlantean death ray. Yet the darkest irony lies in the timing. Berlitz's book hit shelves amid Watergate and Vietnam, when trust in institutions was crumbling. The triangle became a metaphor for the inexplicable, a place where authority, whether naval reports or physics textbooks, could be defiance of a mysterious power. Today, as UFOs re-enter mainstream discourse and governments declassify unidentified aerial phenomena videos, the line between fringe theory and credible mystery blurs again. Maybe the triangle isn't a portal to Atlantis, but in our collective imagination, it's something just as powerful, a mirror reflecting our deepest fears about how little we truly understand. Doug Taylor still remembers the exact moment time stopped working. It was August 14, 1975, and his 32-foot yacht, the Wanderer, was slicing through calm waters northeast of Bimini when the compass needle began spinning like a second hand gone haywire. Then came the fog, not the soft gray mist common to the Caribbean, but a thick, shimmering wall that seemed to swallow sound itself. Taylor later described it as sailing into a cloud made of television static, his radio dissolving into white noise as the seawater around his hull turned an unnatural milky white. When he finally emerged from the haze, his watch and ship's clock both agreed. 3 hours had vanished without a trace, no memory of the gap, no storm. No logical explanation, just a sailor and his boat, unharmed but forever marked by the triangle's eerie grip. Taylor's account isn't unique. Survivors who have brushed against the triangle's mysteries often report similar distortions, not just of time, but of perception itself. In 1989, fishing captain Lorenzo Machas swore he sailed through a patch of impossible darkness near the Puerto Rico Trench, where his crew's flashlights barely pierced a foot ahead while the stars overhead blinked out like snuffed candles. Psychological studies of these survivors revealed chilling patterns, heightened startle reflexes, persistent nightmares featuring mechanical humming, and an uncanny sensitivity to electromagnetic fields. Dr. Evelyn Cross, a maritime psychologist who interviewed Taylor and Mashers, noted their brain scans showed unusual activity in the temporal lobes, the regions governing memory and time perception. It's as if their brains encountered something so alien the circuitry literally couldn't process it, she wrote in a controversial 1998 paper. Yet the most haunting thread in these accounts isn't the anomalies, it's the aftermath. Taylor became obsessed with replicating his experience, returning to the triangle 12 times before his wife begged him to stop. Mashers refused to sail deeper than coastal waters for the rest of his life, his logbooks filled with frantic sketches of lights that moved wrong. These aren't just ghost stories, they're case studies in how extreme stress rewires the human mind. Naval researchers have long known that prolonged disorientation triggers a survival response called the breakaway, a trance-like state where consciousness detaches from reality to avoid psychological collapse. In the triangle, where natural and possibly unnatural forces collide, that fragile line between perception and delusion might be thinner than anywhere else on Earth. What separates these survivors from those who vanish? Perhaps sheer luck, a matter of drifting left instead of right when the fog rolls in. Or maybe the triangle doesn't take everyone. Maybe it lets a few go, sending them back as trembling messengers that the ocean's rules aren't what we think. Either way, their stories linger like fingerprints on a crime scene, faint, fragmented, but undeniably real. And that's the true terror, not the mysteries we can't explain, but the ones we can't unsee. By the 1980s, the Bermuda Triangle's body count began to drop, not because the waters grew safer, but because technology finally gave humanity a fighting chance. The game changer, satellite navigation. Before GPS, sailors relied on celestial navigation and magnetic compasses, both notoriously unreliable in the triangle's electromagnetic soup. A single degree of miscalculation could send ships miles off course, straight into the path of a rogue wave or methane eruption. But with the launch of the first fully operational GPS satellites in 1985, that margin of error shrank to mere feet. Suddenly, captains could pinpoint their location in real time, even when compasses spun and radios crackled with static. The difference was stark. Between 1945 and 1980, the triangle averaged 5 major disappearances per decade. From 1985 onward, just 2, and both had clear explanations like engine failure or sudden storms. Improved communication played an equally vital role. Early distress signals depended on Morse code or shortwave radio, signals easily swallowed by the triangle's notorious dead zones. The introduction of emergency position indicating radio beacons EPIUB changed everything. These floating transmitters, activated by water contact, could broadcast a ship's coordinates via satellite even if the crew couldn't. When the freighter SS Poet vanished in 1980, its lack of an EPIUB left search teams guessing. By contrast, when the cargo ship El Faro encountered Hurricane Joaquin in 2015, its EPIUB led rescuers straight to the wreckage within days, despite the Gulf Stream's scattering effect. Yet the most dramatic shift came from real-time tracking. Modern vessels like oil tankers and cruise ships now feed constant data to shore-based monitors speed, heading, even engine temperature. If a ship deviates unexpectedly, alarms trigger instantly. Compare this to the SS Marine Sulphur Queen's disappearance in 1963, when the Coast Guard spent weeks searching blind because the ship's last known position was a rough estimate scribbled in a logbook. Today, that same vessel would have appeared as a blinking dot on a screen until the moment it sank, its final coordinates etched in digital history. But here's the twist: technology hasn't erased the triangle's mysteries, it's reframed them. In 2019, a private yacht's GPS near Grand Bahama malfunctioned so severely, its display showed the boat circling a single spot for hours while the crew swore they'd sailed straight. Investigators later confirmed a localized magnetic anomaly had scrambled the signal, a glitch that would have been dismissed as pilot error in earlier decades. Even with satellites, the triangle still flickers in and out of focus, reminding us that for all our advances, this patch of ocean retains its capacity to unsettle. The vanishings haven't stopped, they've just become harder to romanticize. Look at the numbers, and the Bermuda Triangle's deadly reputation starts to unravel. According to Lloyd's of London, the world's foremost authority on maritime insurance, the region isn't even in the top 10 most dangerous shipping lanes globally. The data shows the triangle's disappearance rate per 1,000 vessels is nearly identical to the North Sea or the South China Sea, both far deadlier yet far less infamous. Between 1950 and 2020, only 4% of global maritime incidents occurred within the triangle's boundaries, despite accounting for over 15% of global shipping traffic. Statistically speaking, you're more likely to vanish near the foggy coasts of Newfoundland than in the so-called Devil's Triangle. So why does the myth persist? The answer lies in psychology, not oceanography. Human brains are wired to seek patterns, especially sinister ones. When 2 or 3 high-profile vanishings occur in the same region, our minds stitch them into a narrative. The triangle's victims, like Flight 19 or the USS Marine Sulphur Queen, weren't just tragedies. They became characters in a story. Media amplified the effect. After Charles Berlitz's book hit bestseller lists in the 1970s, newspapers began attributing every Caribbean shipwreck to the triangle, regardless of evidence. A fishing boat sinking in a hurricane 200 miles outside the zone folded into the lore. Even seasoned sailors started misreporting coordinates to cash in on the mystery, muddying the data further. Insurance markets tell the real tale. Lloyd's never charged higher premiums for triangle voyages, but after Berlitz's book, public demand forced them to pretend they did. Internal memos from 1976 reveal underwriters quietly laughing at clients who insisted on supernatural risk clauses. The real money was in films, documentaries, and tabloids feeding the frenzy. By contrast, the North Sea's deadly Witchcraft, where over 300 ships sank in the 20th century, earned no Hollywood deals despite being 30 times deadlier. Danger doesn't sell, mystery does, yet the most revealing statistic isn't about ships, it's about planes. The triangle's aviation disappearance rate is actually lower than the global average. The FAA's own data shows that between 1950 and today, the region saw 0 commercial airliner vanishings, while areas like the Andes or the Sahara claimed dozens. Even Flight 19 was a military training mission, not a civilian flight, but try telling that to pop culture. From Close Encounters of the Third Kind to Lost, the triangle became shorthand for cosmic horror, its fictional weight crushing the boring truth beneath it. So next time you hear about the Bermuda Triangle's unsolved mysteries, remember this: the real enigma isn't why ships disappear there, it's why we need them to. The truth about the Bermuda Triangle was never strange enough for Hollywood. By the 1950s, pulp magazines like Fate and Argosy were already twisting real tragedies into lurid fantasy, printing stories about ghost ships and time warps with 0 evidence. A perfect example, the SS Sandra, a freighter lost in 1950 with no distress call. The official Coast Guard report cited hurricane-force winds, but Fate magazine's 1956 article claimed the crew radioed about a green mist that dissolved the hull, a detail fabricated whole cloth. These embellishments weren't harmless fiction, they rewrote history, turning victims' families into unwilling actors in a paranormal circus. Then came Vincent Gaddis's 1964 Argosy article, The Deadly Bermuda Triangle, which coined the iconic name and cemented the template for every exaggeration to follow. Gaddy's cherry-picked cases ignored contradicting data and spliced unrelated events into a seamless mystery. His version of Flight 19's disappearance included a fictional radio transmission, "We are entering white water, nothing seems right," that later appeared in films and documentaries as fact. By the time Charles Berlitz's book hit shelves in 1974, the Triangle's mythology had ossified into truth, with disappearances like the USS Cyclops stripped of context and repackaged as supernatural puzzles. Hollywood pounced. The 1978 film The Bermuda Triangle starred horror legend John Ho as a treasure hunter battling time loops and Nazi ghosts, a far cry from the real-life witchcraft disappearance it loosely referenced. Screenwriters lifted details from real cases, then warped them beyond recognition. In the movie, a yacht's crew vanishes after seeing a glowing UFO. In reality, the Witchcraft's owner likely fell overboard while checking a damaged hull. Even the Los Angeles Times admitted the film played fast and loose with the facts, but audiences didn't care. The movie grossed over $20 million, proving that sensationalism sold better than sober truth. Side by side, the contrasts are staggering. The real SS Marine Sulphur Queen likely sank due to structural flaws. The In Search of TV episode portrayed it as sucked into another dimension. Flight 19's pilots were disoriented by a storm. Close encounters of the third kind implied aliens abducted them. These fabrications did more than entertain. They erased the human cost of these tragedies. Families of the Cyclops crew spent decades battling conspiracy theorists who insisted their loved ones were transported to Atlantis, turning grief into a punchline. Yet the media's distortions also had an unintended consequence. They forced scientists to engage. Oceanographers like Dr. Richard McIver began publishing papers debunking methane hydrate myths, while NASA released studies on magnetic anomalies to counter wormhole theories. The louder the lies grew, the harder experts worked to reclaim the narrative. Today, documentaries like the BBC's The Bermuda Triangle Conspiracy use CGI to show realistic sinkings versus Hollywood's flashy special effects, finally giving the truth a fighting chance. The irony, without the myths, we might never have uncovered the Triangle's real wonders, from hidden methane craters to the Gulf Stream's power. Fiction made us look deeper, but it's the facts that keep us hooked. The Bermuda Triangle isn't just a graveyard for ships. It's a playground for storytellers, musicians, and game developers who have turned its mysteries into cultural touchstones. Take Fleetwood Mac's 1974 hit Bermuda Triangle, where Stevie Nicks croons about lovers vanishing into the void, mirroring the real-life disappearances that gripped the era. The song's eerie synths and cryptic lyrics didn't just reflect the Triangle's lore. They cemented its place in pop culture as a metaphor for the unexplainable. But music is just the beginning. Dive into video games like Tomb Raider or Assassin's Creed, and you'll find hidden levels where players navigate ghost ships or outrun time warps, all nods to the Triangle's legend. These aren't just Easter eggs, they're proof of how deeply the myth has seeped into our collective imagination. What makes the Triangle such an enduring symbol? It's the perfect cocktail of fear and fascination. Unlike other maritime dangers, say the predictable fury of the North Sea, the Triangle offers something far more tantalizing: ambiguity. No single theory, no matter how scientific, can fully explain its vanishings, leaving room for every generation to project their own anxieties onto it. In the 1970s, it became a canvas for Cold War paranoia, with conspiracy theorists whispering about Soviet energy weapons or alien experiments. Today, it's a meme factory with TikTokers stitching together evidence of underwater pyramids or government cover-ups. The Triangle's genius lies in its flexibility. It's a Rorschach test for the unknown. Even the gaming world can't resist its pull. Titles like Return of the Obra Dinn and Sea of Thieves weave the Triangle's tropes into their DNA, turning players into detectives sifting through phantom ships and rewritten timelines. The Mass Effect series even borrowed its portal theory, suggesting the triangle might be a mass relay left by ancient aliens. These narratives thrive because they tap into a primal question. What if the rules of reality aren't as solid as we think? The triangle's real power isn't in the ships it's taken, but in the stories it spawned, stories that let us flirt with chaos without leaving the safety of our screens. Yet beneath the pop culture gloss lies a darker truth. The triangle's victims weren't characters in a sci-fi plot. They were real people whose families still grieve. The Cyclops' 300 lost souls, Flight 19's young pilots, their tragedies became plot devices, their pain diluted into campfire tales. That's the paradox of the triangle's legacy. It's a myth built on real bones, a reminder that the line between entertainment and exploitation is as thin as the horizon at dusk. So the next time you hum along to Bermuda Triangle or battle pixelated ghosts in a game, pause for a moment. Remember that the ocean's greatest trick isn't making ships disappear, it's making us forget the human cost behind the mystery. While the Bermuda Triangle's vanishings spark wild theories, the scientific community sees a far clearer picture, one where nature, not aliens or Atlantis, holds all the cards. Oceanographers point to a lethal cocktail of environmental factors unique to this patch of sea. The Gulf Stream's relentless current, sudden methane eruptions, and magnetic anomalies that scramble navigation. These aren't mysteries, they're well-documented phenomena that, when combined, create a perfect storm of misfortune. Take methane hydrates, those frozen gas pockets lining the seafloor. When they destabilize, they don't just bubble up harmlessly. Norwegian researchers proved these eruptions can reduce water density so drastically that ships lose buoyancy in seconds, sinking like stones without time for distress calls. That explains why wrecks like the USS Marine Sulphur Queen left no debris, their hulls plunged straight into crushing depths, hidden by the very forces that doomed them. Then there's the weather. The triangle sits in a battleground of colliding air masses, where warm Gulf Stream currents meet frigid Atlantic winds, birthing rogue waves that can tower over 80 feet, taller than a 6-story building. Satellite data from NASA's satellites captures these monsters forming in minutes, often in otherwise calm seas. Pilots like those aboard Flight 19 wouldn't have seen these walls of water until it was too late, especially if disoriented by the region's magnetic quirks. Contrary to conspiracy theories, these anomalies aren't supernatural. Earth's magnetic north drifts naturally, and in the triangle, its proximity to the Puerto Rico Trench, a magnetite-rich chasm, creates localized distortions. Compasses here don't fail because of alien tech. They're thrown off by the same forces that make auroras dance at the poles. Skeptics wield Occam's razor like a scalpel. The simplest explanation is usually correct. When the SS El Faro sank in 2015, black box recordings revealed human error, a captain underestimating a hurricane, not a portal to another dimension. The USS Cyclops, overloaded with unstable manganese ore, a cargo known to shift violently in rough seas. Even Bruce Jernon's electronic fog aligns with documented cases of ball lightning or ionized plasma storms, which NOAA studies show are freakishly common near the Bahamas. The truth is, the Bermuda Triangle isn't special. It's just unlucky, a busy intersection of shipping lanes and natural hazards where statistics guarantee tragedies. After all, if vanishings here were truly unnatural, why do they follow the same patterns as disasters everywhere else? No alien abductors bother with insurance fraud, and no ancient crystals selectively target ships built with design flaws. Yet science's greatest victory isn't debunking myths, it's uncovering realities more fascinating than fiction, those gaping craters from methane explosions. They're natural laboratories for studying climate change, as methane's greenhouse potential dwarfs CO2. The Gulf Stream's power, it's a lifeline for marine ecosystems, not just a wreckage disperser. Even the triangle's magnetic quirks help geologists map Earth's molten core. The ocean doesn't need ghosts to be terrifying or awe-inspiring. Its real magic lies in how much we've yet to learn, proving that sometimes the truth isn't just stranger than fiction. It's infinitely more compelling. Among the Bermuda Triangle's countless mysteries, few are as hauntingly unresolved as the case of the Carol A. Deering, a 5-masted schooner discovered run aground on North Carolina's Outer Banks in January 1921. The scene was straight out of a nightmare. The ship's sails still set, food laid out in the galley as if mid-meal, even the crew's personal belongings untouched in their quarters. But the 11 men who should have been aboard, nowhere to be found, no lifeboats missing, no signs of struggle, just an eerie silence hanging over the deck like a held breath. The Coast Guard's investigation spanned months, even involving the FBI, yet their final report conceded defeat with a single baffling line: the crew disappeared under circumstances unknown. What makes the Deering story so unsettling isn't just the absence of answers, it's the clues that lead nowhere. The ship's logbook and navigation equipment were missing, yet the helm remained lashed steady, suggesting no panic or abrupt abandonment. A nearby lighthouse keeper claimed to have seen the Deering drifting days earlier with no one on deck, while a Portuguese freighter reported exchanging eerie, garbled signals with what might have been the schooner. Theories erupted like wildfire: mutiny, piracy, even accusations of a Prohibition-era rum running operation gone wrong, but no evidence ever surfaced to support any of them. Even the weather logs from that week showed calm seas, ruling out storms as the culprit. The Deering had simply stopped being a working ship and become a ghost. Then there's the chilling coda. Within months of the discovery, key witnesses began dying under suspicious circumstances. The lighthouse keeper who'd seen the empty deck was found murdered in his home. A Coast Guard officer assigned to the case died in a sudden car crash after vowing to reopen the investigation. Even the FBI files, declassified decades later, contained whole pages redacted without explanation, fueling whispers of cover-ups. Was the Deering caught in some natural phenomenon, like a rogue wave that swept the crew overboard without capsizing the sturdy schooner? Or does its fate hint at something darker, a crime so meticulously executed that even the ocean helped hide the evidence? One of the few concrete leads came from an unexpected source: maritime insurance records. The Deering's owner had increased its policy value just weeks before the voyage, a detail that set off alarm bells for investigators. Yet no payoff was ever claimed, and no wreckage found elsewhere to suggest sabotage. Modern sonar scans of the area reveal nothing but shifting sands where the schooner once rested, its bones long scattered by hurricanes and tides. The Deering's legacy endures not because it defies all logic, but because it teases just enough to keep us questioning. Every explanation fits until you examine it closely, and the seams split open to reveal the void underneath. This is the Bermuda Triangle's cruelest trick, not the vanishings themselves, but the breadcrumbs left behind, taunting us with the illusion of solvability. The Deering wasn't the first ghost ship in these waters, nor the last, but it remains the perfect metaphor for the Triangle's grip on our imagination. Because sometimes the most terrifying mystery isn't what happened, it's realizing we might never know. The Bermuda Triangle remains one of history's greatest enigmas, a place where science, superstition, and sheer human curiosity collide. We've explored methane bubbles capable of swallowing ships whole, rogue waves that rise like liquid skyscrapers, and magnetic anomalies that scramble even the most advanced instruments. Yet for every rational explanation, there's a whisper of something stranger: phantom radio transmissions, vanishing crews, and those eerie stretches of fog where time itself seems to twist. The truth: the ocean doesn't need ghosts to be terrifying. Its real power lies in the sheer scale of its unknowns, the humbling reminder that for all our satellites and sonar, we've barely scratched the surface of its secrets. But here's the fascinating part: the Triangle's grip on our imagination isn't just about the disappearances. It's about what they represent, the thrill of the unsolved, the itch to wonder what if. Think about it. In a world where algorithms predict our next purchase and satellites map every inch of the planet, the triangle dares to say, not everything fits neatly into your textbooks. That's why we keep coming back, whether through documentaries, conspiracy forums, or campfire tales. It's not just about ships or planes, it's about the tantalizing possibility that mystery still exists. So where does that leave us? Science has given us compelling answers for many of the triangle's tragedies: overloaded cargo, sudden storms, human error. But the stories that linger, the ones that raise goosebumps, are the ones that slip through the cracks of explanation. The Carol A. Deering's abandoned deck. Roos Jernon's electronic fog, that single life preserver from the Marine Sulphur Queen, pristine as if it never touched saltwater. These aren't just gaps in data, they're invitations to question, to explore, to keep searching. And that's where you come in. Maybe your team methane eruption, convinced those underwater craters hold the key. Or perhaps your side eyeing those declassified military files, wondering what really happened during Project Magnet. Whatever your theory, the conversation doesn't end here. Dive deeper. Check out the National Archives' digitized logs from the USS Cyclops. Track the Gulf Stream's real-time currents on NOAA website. Or just stare at a map of the triangle and let your imagination run wild, because sometimes the most rewarding mysteries aren't the ones we solve, but the ones that keep us asking. If you've made it this far, you're clearly as hooked as we are. So hit that subscribe button. We've got more historical deep dives coming, from vanished civilizations to unsolved art heists. And drop your favorite triangle theory in the comments. Did Atlantis sink beneath these waves? Are we dealing with interdimensional hiccups, or is the simplest explanation the right one? The debate is half the fun. After all, the Bermuda Triangle's greatest trick isn't hiding the truth, it's making us need to find it.